even internally, when you look at colonization, how residential school impacted our family systems. We lost a lot of these abilities to decision make, to problem solve, to think, to critically think, to even communicate in a healthy way, right? Telling our parents I love you, telling my parents I miss you. For some families, that's very hard to do because they lost touch with that emotional communication, right? Interpersonal skills, how do we relate to one another? How do we get along, right? How do we get along to the point of being able to solve problems? Like I made the joke that there's some people I wouldn't want in the bush with me, right? Because a lot of them don't know how to solve problems, right? A lot of them don't know how to actually connect to one another. A lot of people don't know how to communicate, so that when you're in the bush and you're thirsty and you're hungry and you're stressed out, chances are those people are going to be doing a lot more damage than good than helping our people survive. Does that make sense? So that's why these basic fundamentals are very important. These life skills, self-awareness. Who are you? Where do you come from? Right? What's your language? Right? What's our stories? What's my identity as an Ahewa person? Empathy, able to help people. An example of that is that when you're preparing for hard times and you have your life in order, let's say you have food stored, you have water stored, if somebody made an obligation to help people, like a holy person or a head man, where they have to help people, if those people come and ask for food and water, they have to give that, right? We have that in our way of life where somebody asks you for help, you have to give it, right? That type of empathy. But when you look at crisis zones that happened in the past, like Hurricane Katrina, right? Like, how many people remember Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, with that big flood and hurricane, and people were killing each other, right? People were going missing. People were fighting over cans of food after 4 days, right? There's actual automatic gunfire in New Orleans where it sounded like a war zone, right? Because they weren't practicing that empathy. They weren't practicing any traditional spiritual values, which our people do have. Right? So we got to be ready for that. We got to be prepared. Is even though I'm ready, even though my family's ready, or I'm getting my children and my family ready, we have enough food to last. What happens if my cousin comes, right, with his kids? Right? Am I strong enough to say, "Yeah, I got you, bro. We're in this together." Right? Dealing with our emotional intelligence, like how do we feel our emotions? Right? What are the emotions there? Because that's who we are as human beings, is to feel those emotions: mad, sad, happy, and scared. Right? Some of us, sometimes we don't even let ourselves feel mad. Sometimes we don't let ourselves feel happy. Sometimes we don't let ourselves feel fear. So we got to be aware of ourselves on that internal level. Right? And again, how do you make healthy, positive decisions? How do you problem solve? Right? The situations we're in right now require creative thinking. Right? We're not seeing that come out from First Nations governments, where they're not actually thinking creatively. They're just trying to do things how they always done. Right? Business as usual. We're already in situations where we can't do business as usual because the water is already making those changes, and we need to figure out ways to help our people. Critical thinking, right? Maybe that oil and gas development isn't a good idea based on everything we talked about today. Right? Maybe we better think more critically of that. Right? Maybe letting the farmers plant with all those pesticides in our area isn't a good idea. Right? We got to be critical. We got to have the ability to say no. Communicating that and getting that across, and actually being able to go and communicate with those people and say, you know what, this isn't a good idea, and this is why. Does this all make sense, these life skills? So I wanted to end on a positive note and give you some perspective